Hello, we are back with another live Wrestling with Johners, second live interview in the space of 48 hours, and obviously part of the Johners Podcaster Network. This is Wrestling with Johners episode 198. Yes, only 2 episodes away from that magical 200 figure where we've got Connor and Victor, formerly from The Ascension, as my special guest for episode 200. Today, however, got an awesome guest all the way from Australia. Ricky South, how are you? Very nice to have you on the Wrestling with Johners podcast.
Look, I'm well. Thank you very much for having me. Didn't realize I was 198, 2 away from the big one, but
I know
that's a good 200 episode.
Hey, not too bad, eh? I've, like I say, really struck lucky with Connor and Victor there. But that'll be August the 22nd if you want to tune in, Ricky. That'll be Connor and Victor. Now, The Awakening, Big Con and Vic the Space Lord. But Ricky Self, great to have you on the show. We spoke a bit off air. You're kind of in the midst of celebrating a big win for Robbie Eagles over in New Japan, the brand new IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. Tell us about it, because Robbie's a bit of a mentor of yours.
Look, it was quite surreal to see Robbie, him being the head coach at our academy. Just absolutely phenomenal to see just one of us basically succeed and achieve their ultimate goal on the ultimate stage. I mean, seeing Robbie Eagles win the title at the Tokyo Dome, it doesn't get much better than that for our hometown boy.
Absolutely, pretty surreal, and I'm sure many beverages will be consumed, possibly before this podcast, but definitely after the podcast, in celebration for Robbie's excellent victory there. But just for anybody watching or listening at home, or even in Australia, welcome. Over the next 45 minutes to 60 minutes, we'll be speaking to Ricky South all about the wrestling scene over in Australia. I'm very, very keen to find out all about it, and in particular his home promotion PWA there, his journey in the wrestling business, of course, bring this right up to speed with what Ricky has been up to inside and outside of the squared circle in 2021. And if you do have any questions for Ricky, get in touch, send us any questions. If you're watching this on Twitch, YouTube or Facebook, get in touch, ask your questions, and we'll do our best to answer any questions live during this broadcast. But first of all, Ricky, thanks again for coming on the show. See the championship bout there, the PWA Heavyweight Champion. We're going to get into all of that because what a terrific company, a fantastic bout, and a great victory. But I've got to ask, kind of, what's the latest? What's going on in Australia? What's going on in the Australian wrestling scene at the moment? I mean, over here in the UK, they've pretty much lifted most COVID restrictions. The UK wrestling scene is kind of getting back on its feet this summer with fans attending shows, certainly from over the last 7 to 10 days. But what's going on over there, buddy?
It's a little bit of a weird situation in the entire country. The states are almost acting like their own independent countries. So
right,
if one state's having too many cases, all right, then that state's going to get locked down to the others. So where I'm currently at in Sydney, it's right now the worst affected state in the country. So we're very much locked down. Other states like Western Australia, Northern Territory, and I think Queensland, very much open.
Right, that's interesting.
So, yeah. So just our state is copping it a bit. So we're in our 5th week of lockdown, which means we can't really leave the house, only for bare essentials.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking there should have been a show this past Friday, your 14-year anniversary show for PWA Call to Arms? That obviously got postponed or delayed, but that was affected, I'm assuming?
Correct. So just the Friday past, we were meant to have our 14th anniversary, and it's always sucks and it stings to not have such a historic show for PWA. And personally, selfishly, it just hurts not being able to be on that stage with the title and in front of the fans.
Yeah. And like you say, over in Australia, it is kind of different from state to state or region to region. But there have been quite a bit of pro wrestling during the pandemic era, shall we say. And I know that you've been in action over the last year or so. Was it with fans or no fans? What's the kind of situation as far as you're concerned over the last year or so? Because you have been in wrestling matches, haven't you?
Yeah, look, last year, mid-2020, there was a point in time where we could put on shows, but with no crowds. So we did a fair bit of tapings out of our academy. And then late in the year, we actually came back into live performances in front of a minimum capacity crowd. And that fed into the start of 2021. And everything was looking good. Everything was building up. And little by little, we went from 50% capacity to 75 to 100% capacity, and we were starting to get back that momentum that obviously we lost in 2020, and then lockdown or another spike in the COVID cases has put a bit of a halt to that.
Yeah. Can never be too careful, but like I say, in particular in Sydney, it sounds like you're going through a bit of a tough time, and so many days kind of in the latest lockdown period. But the next big event I think you guys, PWA, are building towards is a Coliseum, scheduled for the 13th and 14th of August. Now, I don't know if you know too much about what's going to go on with that event. I know that you've been announced as being part of that event, that 2-day show Coliseum, which I think is kind of based around a tournament. But it sounds like another amazing offering from PWA. They've done these Coliseum shows for many years before. If it goes ahead, hypothetically, unless you've heard anything that I haven't, how do you see the 2 days going? And for yourself in particular, I know you've been announced already.
Yeah, look, these shows, and especially this weekend, it's the biggest weekend that we have in our calendar.
Yeah.
So we kind of invest most of our energy and time and efforts into making this weekend such an experience that not only just does it benefit the wrestlers and the fans watching on a live stream or perhaps any replay, but we really want to make it a completely immersive experience for the live fans there as well. So last year we held the previous year we held a bit of a fan conclave where we got to do some sort of meet and greets or some sort of live podcasts and different sort of I would call them sort of stalls that you would find in festivals at our show. So I haven't heard whether the show's been affected. I've got my fingers crossed every day, and on my knees praying that it doesn't get postponed. But if and when it does go ahead, I'm so excited to be a part of it. I mean, it's going to be an exhibition of the greatest wrestlers in Australia and perhaps abroad, depending upon what those restrictions are like. But
interesting.
Yeah, and I just think it's going to make for two nights of probably the best wrestling that PWA and Australian wrestling is going to put out at least in 2021.
Yeah, so I'm quite intrigued now, because this is a PWA run 2-day event. But from what I'm kind of gauging here, is it open to talent from around Australia and other countries? And it's a tournament based event? Is there a prize at the end of it?
Yeah, so it is open to all professional wrestlers. So it is an invite only competition.
Yeah.
This year, however, the likelihood of getting any international talent may be a little trickier because our government's a little bit stricter with allowing international passengers in. But the best thing is the winner of the 2-day tournament receives a sword.
Nice.
It's fantastic.
They can do their own Drew McIntyre entrance then, can't they?
They can 100%. And every year it's a different sword. And it's not the same.
That's cool.
Sword. So
that's cool.
Like the first year it was a big katana. The next it was like I would call it somewhat similar to a dagger.
Yeah.
So if only I wonder what the third year's sword is going to be. But yeah, a little bit different. Obviously, a sword for the Coliseum champion. It's only fitting.
100%. That sounds really, really cool, and got me very, very intrigued. I doubly hope it goes ahead because I want to watch it now. But oh, yeah, 100%. So you've obviously got the championship out there. Congratulations on being the PWA Heavyweight Champion, Pro Wrestling Australia. You managed to beat Caveman Ugg. That's a hell of a name. After his epic 944-day reign. That must have been a remarkable night, a very memorable match for you, especially after having fought your way to the top with PWA over the last couple of years. So, bit of a dream come true moment for you, and yeah, like I say, you're now the champ. Tell us about it.
Look, it's always surreal. Spending the amount of time I have with PWA and training and on the shows, it's obviously this is the ultimate goal for anyone who's in PWA. Being able to take down and dethrone a champion like Caveman Ugg, and fantastic name for the man. That in itself was a gargantuan feat, adding on the fact that the title was on the line after a 900+ day reign.
Yeah,
all of these elements fell in line to create a very special and very meaningful moment for myself and hopefully for the fans. And I've said this before, but I didn't really get a chance to enjoy the moment because as soon as the ref counted the 3, it was very much of a feeling of what do I need to do to hold on to this, to bring PWA forward into a bigger stage, into a bigger spotlight. And it's very much what's next.
So you're taking
what's next
on
is lockdown.
Well, yes, unfortunately, but obviously taking on the responsibility and the burden of the championship. But yeah, absolutely. So you haven't had a chance to defend it yet, I'm guessing.
No, unfortunately. And that burns me so much. There's only been 2 shows since winning the title. This year. And on both those shows, I didn't have a chance to defend it because really there isn't a worthy challenger in the sense.
Interesting.
There are a few people vying for that contendership, but no one that's really laid their claim.
Well, maybe the winner of the Coliseum tournament could be your next challenger, unless of course you win that yourself. But I'm very intrigued about kind of the general scene, the wrestling scene in Australia, because coming from the UK, there might be a little bit of ignorance or a bit of naivety about what the wrestling scene's over in Australia now. We're familiar with a lot of Australian household names that have gone on to WWE and New Japan, like Robbie Eagles and 1 or 2 others. But in particular, the wrestling promotions and the Australian scene, give us a bit of a glimpse into the business down under, because we've spoken a bit about PWA and we're going to speak a lot more about PWA, but talk us about the general scene, because it's a growing scene, or at least it was a growing scene, and certainly over the last decade or so it's got bigger and more vibrant, hasn't it?
Yeah, look, thank you for the kind words towards what we're trying to accomplish here in Australia. It is a flourishing scene. It's got a little bit of momentum going forward, but it is rather unique in the sense that Australia having a limited number of states. Every state basically has about 2 or 3 promotions that are at the top or really spearheading their scene in that state.
Yeah.
And then obviously in amongst those companies, there's obviously very much a friendly little rivalry competition to put on the best product, best performance. But everyone knows that being so isolated on the other side of the world, this isn't a you or me situation. The best way for all of us to improve and to really go forward with this scene and to make it the next absolute hotbed is all of us working together. And it's so refreshing to see that all the top companies all have that same vision. So whether you're in WA or Perth or Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane, the top companies want Australian wrestling in general to be spotlighted and on the forefront of what everyone's talking about in terms of hot indie wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spoke a little bit off air about this, and we'll get into kind of like individual wrestlers that have kind of left Australia and made a name for themselves elsewhere. But you're also very passionate about the fact that you feel that maybe Australian wrestling or the scene in general doesn't get as much exposure or maybe as much credit as it deserves. Obviously, podcasts like this helps to a certain degree, especially when it's kind of outside of Australia, to add a bit more exposure over here in the UK. But what's your thoughts on that? Because I know it's something you're very passionate about in terms of how Australian wrestling is kind of viewed as a whole thing, despite the fact that so many individuals have gone on to great success outside of Australia.
Yeah, correct. And again, like always having the opportunity to do an interview such as this one with yourself to a different audience, especially in the UK.
Yeah.
I'm always very thankful of that. So again, thank you. But the Australian wrestling scene, I consider it to be very almost grungy. It's a niche within a niche, in the sense that everyone knows of the European scene and the American scene, and perhaps to some degree what's happening in Japan, but there is a whole other continent that seems to be omitted or left behind, and obviously that being Australia. Because we are so segregated from the rest of the world, it's almost that we fly under the radar. And we are trying so bloody hard to not fly under that radar. We want to be off the radar. We want to be on the top of everyone's list on the best independent promotions in the world. And we're doing that by having the most athletic wrestlers, the best performers, and I will go out on a limb and possibly say the best production value for an independent wrestling company in terms of our video packages, promos, pictures, hype, all of that is attributed to our production team, and I'll give them a bit of a shout out. Jax Jordan and Ben Anderson, PWA Studios as well. All of that together is working, as I mentioned, to get that goal of getting PWA and Aussie wrestling on the top of everyone's sort of hot indie promotions. Because
where it deserves to be, 100%.
Yeah, and I please don't take this as me downgrading any other independent promotion, because I see this as friendly competition. We're trying bloody hard to be number one, and it's a mammoth effort, but I feel like we have the team, the talent, the staff, the performers to get that shit done.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, the production values are definitely there. The atmosphere is there. I want to kind of focus on PWA in particular, Pro Wrestling Australia Black Label, a great promotion. They've been going since 2007. Many might consider it Australia's number one promotion. Many might. Certainly your home promotion, where you kind of learned from the ground up. But from what I've seen, it's a very unique and very lively adult fan base. We'll certainly talk about those in a moment. But what can you tell me about PWA that we might not already know in terms of what it can offer the fans, the viewing audience? And what is it about PWA in particular that makes them so special for you?
Look, I think a fact that seems to be forgotten by a lot of people is that PWA was founded and started by a professional wrestler by the name of Madison Eagles.
Right.
Who, it seems to be a bit of a crime that people have forgotten that name. She was the number one female wrestler in the world at a time, and I'd go out on a limb and saying possibly one of the best wrestlers in general. From its inception, PWA never really considered gender to be a boundary towards performance. So there was never really any women's matches or intergender. It was just pure wrestling. And that's the beauty of PWA and a lot of the other companies, is that we focus to a great degree on the quality of wrestling that we're putting out and the entertainment that we're trying to provide to the fans. While we're trying to accomplish those two, we're always adapting to what the fans are wanting to see, what they're digging, what they're not liking. We're trying to always create some more engaging content with our production team and trying to do something or do things that aren't quite the norm or being done in wrestling. So always trying to be on that front foot of innovation. And that's what I like about PWA. Within PWA, there is such a high standard and a high competitive drive for a lot of these people that no one in PWA is ever complacent. And no one is ever really comfortable, because we all know that the moment we do get comfortable, we will be surpassed, whether it's within our own company or by another promotion abroad. We may lose a bit of momentum. So that's never what we want. And I feel that PWA and everyone there has that same mentality, which is pretty damn cool to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything I've seen just kind of jumps off the page. Production values, the fans as well. Everything I've seen from PWA and the fans, like I say, it's an adult-based 18-plus audience. And one word that jumped to mind when I was watching some PWA action this week was raucous. The fans are definitely there. They're present. They add to the atmosphere. But that sort of atmosphere that the fans bring, that must give you and the guys and the girls that extra kind of 10% when you step through that curtain. Tell us what sort of a buzz and motivation that gives you when you've got that lively audience, that lively crowd standing in front of you.
Look, it's a cliche to say, but it's just that immediate sort of rush of adrenaline, and it's that immediate injection of life and motivation. So the fans that we have, and they are such wonderful fans. They are so very receptive. But as you said, they are very raucous.
That was the word that jumped to mind when I saw them. Yeah.
100%. For good and sometimes for bad. Like if they don't like something, they will sure as hell let the wrestlers know. But it is a great feeling to know that the fans are just as into the wrestling as the wrestlers themselves. And I feel like even the fans know that they are along with PWA for the ride, for the journey. I'm pretty sure they feel just as important to our growth as the wrestlers. So even the fans, whether they know it or not, are just as important to driving PWA, which again makes it a little bit difficult when we had our lockdown shows with no crowds, or we had a very minimal crowd. We also had restrictions whereby they weren't allowed to make noise or stand up, and they had to be like 2 meters apart. So it was rough on our fans as well.
Yeah, that's very reminiscent of what they're trying to do over in Japan as well, where they can't make any noise, clap or jump up, but they might be able to clap, but nothing else. But I'm very interested to know about your journey in the pro wrestling business. But when did it start for you as a fan, Ricky? I'm really interested to know kind of what was that genesis? How did you first come across professional wrestling? What was that kind of moment like when wrestling came into your life, I'm assuming, as a youngster?
Yeah, look, I can't isolate one moment, but I grew up with two older brothers, one of which actually lives in the UK. So I get a little bit of a update on what it's like in the UK scene. But as you can imagine, all very physical. We loved our footy or our rugby, and being physical, and obviously being three boys, we just all naturally tended to gravitate towards professional wrestling. And as they say, it just really grew from there. You don't really grow out of it. You just kind of prioritize other things throughout the years, because I tried to get a bit of a start in footy, but then I obviously followed my other passion for wrestling. And that started in 2015. So I've been going at it for about 7 years now. I started at a promotion in Sydney that wasn't PWA, and I was there for about 6 months, and then kind of started fresh, and then started from a blank slate with PWA in December 6, 2015.
Ah, you remember the exact date. It was obviously a very memorable occasion, stepping through them doors for the first time. The PWA have their own academy, don't they? And obviously you mentioned Robbie Eagles, and it's Madison Eagles as well, isn't it? That run that complex. The head trainers there brought you in for the PWA academy. So tell us about the academy and how that kind of brought you on as a young wrestler, I'm assuming, kind of finding your feet, stepping through them doors on day one. Must have been a nervous but exciting time for you, but I'm guessing that you settled in quite well. Tell us about the academy and your experience of it.
Yeah, look, the academy, it's evolved so much since I first got there, and from what I understand, it was even before my time. Our head coaches are Robbie Eagles, Madison Eagles, and Mick Moretti as well, who's been an absolute star on the independent scene. It's full circle. I very much remember a couple of weeks before my first tryout with PWA, I made a call because they posted a number on the poster, or the tryout poster, to call this number to get in touch. I called that number. Person answered. They said, "Yeah, yep, all right, come down to our place in Liverpool," so out in Western Sydney. And lo and behold, like, I made that call to Robbie Eagles, and then obviously I rocked up to the tryout, and there was Robbie Eagles and Mick Moretti. I just find it funny that fast forward 7 years, and I just watched Robbie Eagles win a title on New Japan, and I funnily enough have this title.
Yeah,
I like those full circle
moments. Absolutely, yeah.
But the academy has become such a great environment to foster not only great wrestlers, but and this sounds corny, but good people. We've created an environment that is very wholesome and a tight-knit family-like community, that if there is any negativity or any people kind of threaten anyone's comfortability or anyone's satisfaction in the PWA, in the academy, that gets sorted out really quickly.
Sure.
We don't really like any sort of toxic attitudes in the academy. And everyone shares, again, the same sort of value and mentality of working bloody hard, going to training, giving it your all, and just getting better. So especially the trainees coming out of the Pro Wrestling Academy, up there with some of the most technically sound professional wrestlers. I can say that as venturing to some parts in America and seeing that firsthand. Mick Moretti can testify to that. Robbie Eagles can, and so can Madison Eagles. The quality that we're trying to produce out of the academy needs to be bar none. And that kind of quality and that kind of standard will set us apart from a lot of the other independent promotions going out there.
Absolutely. It sounds like the PWA Academy is a kind of a bit of an envy of many of the other promotions, certainly in your region and maybe across Australia, especially with the talent there that's training and the talent that it's producing. And like I say, the professionalism of the whole place is quite outstanding, and certainly done fantastic for your career as well. We've just had a quick shout out via YouTube. Jordan Lees has been in touch. Thanks, Ricky. Great to see you on a podcast abroad. So thank you, Jordan, for getting in touch there. But tell us about your first couple of years in the business, finding your feet, getting used to a very competitive business, a very competitive environment. How did you adjust to it, and how did you find your first couple of years, and any interesting stories when you're kind of going out there for the first few times trying to find your feet and not mess things up?
Look, I do have one little, very, very small anecdote, which is quite ironic. But the first few years in PWA and our sister promotion, Newcastle Pro Wrestling, so we work very closely together.
Yeah.
My first couple of years in both of those places was a little bit of a whirlwind, in the sense that I think I managed to come into those two promotions at just the right time, where there was a little bit of a lull and a little bit of a gap for myself and my flamboyance and my persona. And that kind of started to turn a few heads and get some eyes and a little bit of traction that I had in no way anticipated. So very much hit the ground running, and it was very exciting. And I did all that alongside a lot of notable wrestlers like the Velocity, so a top tag team in our promotion and in the world. Obviously, the likes of Robbie Eagles, Mick Moretti, Jack Bonza. But I was doing that side by side with now Grayson Waller in 205 Live. So when we talk about a competitive sort of drive or a competitive edge, that bloke was the person that I needed to compete with, and vice versa as well. So although we're good friends, it was just very much a situation of, if that guy is going to the academy 7 days a week, then I need to go 8 days a week, hypothetically.
I know what you mean.
But the small little anecdote, as I said, I came in at just the right time. And it was the right time enough that in my third match for PWA, I main evented a PWA show against Robbie Eagles for the PWA heavyweight title.
Wow.
So I think it was my third match, third or fourth.
That's good going. That's good going.
So maybe it speaks to the quality of the academy, having one of their very, very new trainees do that. But yeah, as I said, it was a little bit of a lull, and I found myself in quite an interesting position, challenging Robbie Eagles. And then again, lo and behold, that bloke just won the junior heavyweight title. So
yeah, that's really awesome.
Another full circle.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you, Ricky, has there ever been a time in your career, certainly in the early stages, where you had this light bulb moment and thought, yeah, I get it now. I understand it now. Or maybe you haven't had that moment. I don't know. Maybe the match against Robbie Eagles 3 matches in was that light bulb moment. But have you kind of had that kind of light bulb moment, think, yeah, I understand it now. You know, I get this wrestling game.
Yeah. Look, I have had that light bulb moment, and that light bulb moment may not be the same conclusion for any other wrestler. But that light bulb moment for me is that wrestling needs to be enjoyable. So if I, for some reason, don't enjoy what I'm doing, then something's not right.
Yeah.
And I don't know when I realized that, but when I did, all of a sudden, I didn't really ever become nervous for my matches. I took joy and excitement from going to training and going to shows. I take joy and excitement from bloody setting up the shows and doing the ring and doing all of that. All of that brings me joy. And I say this to a lot of people: if it's not fun, if you're not liking, if you're not enjoying it, what the bloody hell are you doing wrong? There's something wrong.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the light bulb. And when you enjoy what you do, naturally, you're going to be good at it, and you're going to want to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah, some great advice there, especially for any aspiring wrestlers that might be listening or watching to this. But I want to talk about your character now, your persona. You describe yourself on your Twitter profile as the flamboyant aggression. But tell us more about your wrestling persona, your gimmick. Is it an extension of yourself, as they say, or all great wrestlers are your own, all great gimmicks, your own personality turn up to 11? What about yourself?
Look, in some elements of my life, yes, it is turned up to 11, and in some aspects, no. When I'm about the house or just walking around the shops, I love to wear some trackies or some sweatpants and just a jumper. But when I'm performing, I love wearing flashy gear. I love wearing colorful items. I like being the center of attention. And that part I find to be, yes, quite an my character being accentuated from who I am.
Of course.
I am naturally pretty colorful. I am very overt. I am very out there. And I always like to express my style and my persona as flamboyant aggression. I like to juxtaposition, you know.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah. English was never my strong suit. I like putting two opposing philosophies together and making them work. So you don't normally see a flamboyant, colorful, out there character with a strong as hell lariat, big burly man, you know, hairy chest, thick legs, now with a bit of a beard. Those two things historically didn't quite marry up and match. But if there's one thing that I always very much love to do, it's just challenge the norm and break down any preconceived notion or prejudice. Thank you, Jordan Lee's juxtapose. No, it's not juxtaposed. Whatever.
That's another saying. But yeah. Anyway, I think we get the gist. But
we get the gist.
You put on a hell of a show for your audience when you're out there, both with your flamboyance, your character, and your in-ring work, most definitely. But I've got to ask you, what inspires you as a performer? You know, has there been anybody or a group of people that has maybe been an inspiration to you along the way, or maybe what inspires you, what motivates you as a performer?
Look, I'd be lying to say that my coaches don't inspire me.
Of course.
But they also are one of my biggest motivators. In the sense that they are always pushing me and I always attempt to or try to push them, you know, and seeing what they do on the world stage is only fuel to the fire for me to better my game, better my craft, and further my skills. But outside of that, I am very much a individual who kind of has my own goals, my own visions, and my own. I'll again reiterate goals. And I am very self-motivated. I always try to be. I do take inspiration from, as I said, coaches and the environment that we have at PWA. But I try and maintain a level of self-motivation and a bit of a self-reliance to make sure that, you know, when it does get tough and when it does get challenging and when there is no one there I can fall back on, I know that me, myself, and my mind and my ability is the thing that won't fail me or won't buckle.
You got the mental strength to work through it, most definitely, and work hard in the difficult situations for sure. I want to talk about some of your matches because obviously in research, speaking to you, I've caught a lot of your matches, and for anybody that might be interested, there's a ton of Ricky South matches on YouTube, so easily accessible. Let's talk about some of your matches. I mean, you only have to go onto YouTube and see you in tag action against Aussie Open, for example. There's a ton of singles matches that are on there as well. Are there any matches in particular that stand out as being some of your favorites or proudest matches that you've been a part of?
Look, there are a few matches, and then they all stand out for different reasons. The match with Aussie Open does stand out for me because
hell of a match.
Thank you very much. It was Aussie Open's first match back in Australia. Mark Davis's first match back from injury.
Yeah.
It was Matty Wahlberg's last actual match before going off to WWE. So that one always holds a little bit of significance to me. I did also wrestle Matty Wahlberg in an Iron Man match. That holds some significance because we were both about 2 years in and had quite a little bit of a big feud that culminated in that match. So I hold that one dearly. I have also had matches with a comedic character we have in PWA called Big Fudge, who's basically a chocolate bar mask character who thinks he's 7 foot and 500 pounds.
Wow, that's awesome.
It sounds so out there and so wild, but he has such fantastic comedic timing, and his comedic chops are so great that every time that we wrestle, I find myself thoroughly enjoying the match and loving what we did, because it's always just funny. So a lot of matches I have with him are fantastic. My match with K-Man Ugg for the title holds a little bit of a significance, obviously, for the title.
Yeah.
And I had a match in Coliseum 2019 with a gentleman by the name of Davis Storm.
Right.
And he's a gentleman from Perth who has the moniker of being the godfather of Australian wrestling. Being there from pretty much ground zero, from its early days or through to from its darkest days to where it is now.
Yeah.
Very much a dearly respected figure. So getting to wrestle him was a lovely experience, and we put on, in my eyes, a very, very, very good match.
Yeah, that sounds great. Sounds like our equivalent of Doug Williams, who's been around for 20 plus years, been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. But we spoke. Go on.
I was about, if I ever got the chance to wrestle Doug Williams,
yeah,
put me
a
to
dream
bed,
match.
Put me to bed. I will take that Chaos Theory. So,
who knows? One day, because Doug's come out of retirement again. So who knows? If you ever get over here, or if Doug goes over there, that'll be a hell of a match for sure. But
what
I mean, we spoke about Robbie Eagles, another legend, of course. But there's been so many great wrestlers that are flying the flag for Australia, doing so many awesome things around the world. You only have to look at Bronson Reed, who's a former PWA champion when he was Jonah Rock, Rhea Ripley doing great things on Raw, Tony Storm, the Iconics, of course, who are doing other things out and about now, Buddy Murphy, Tenille Dashwood, Indy Hartwell, and of course Aussie Open. I saw them many times when they wrestled for Progress over here in the UK. Sean Custom as well, another one of my previous interviews, but all doing amazing things in the UK, in Japan, on the US soil as well. Many of whom you've probably seen develop before your very eyes. When you see someone like a Bronson Reed do his thing over in NXT, or a Rhea Ripley, does that motivate you as a performer to want to follow in their footsteps?
Pure and simple, yes, 100%. Someone like seeing a Bronson Reed, or formerly known as Jonah Rock, I had the fortunate ability to train with him for about just a few days at his school in Adelaide. And whenever he came to PWA, it was always a lovely opportunity to just pick his brain and see his philosophy towards wrestling. And you always knew that that man was so passionate that he was going to go somewhere. Yeah. And, seeing that passion be rewarded is such a lovely and heartwarming thing to see, but again, also motivational as well. Seeing the likes of, as you mentioned, Tony Storm, Rhea Ripley, knowing that these two women, just from their local promotions in Adelaide, who no one thought would have any eyes on that promotion or that city, managed to break out and carve a piece of history for themselves. We have, as I mentioned, Grayson Waller and Steph DeLanda now in NXT, the Iconics, Robbie Eagles. We have Australian Suicide down in Mexico as well.
Yeah,
all of these people doing great things and defying the odds of, as I said, being so isolated where we are in Australia. No one thinks that the eyes are on us or people are watching, but now more than ever do we realize that people are watching, and that just adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. It must be a very motivational moment when you see them wrestle and see what they've achieved and accomplished. And like you say, there needs to be more eyes on the Australian scene. There needs to be more eyes on PWA. And I know that PWA are on Fight TV, so they've got a certain amount of exposure. But like I say, more definitely would not hurt one iota. But we've spoken about those wrestlers that have kind of left Australia, but PWA in particular and the Australian wrestling scene, they've introduced a lot of imports of their own. I mean, you've had the likes of Jushin Thunder Liger performing in a PWA ring, Will Ospreay, like I say, a Brit, former IWGP Heavyweight Champion, and a former PWA champion. And of course, you've been in the ring with Jimmy Havoc. So that's pretty huge. When you have these legends, big names in the business, come over for a tour and a chance to spend time with the guys and the girls backstage, let alone have a chance to get in the ring with them. So tell us about your experiences when the big names come over.
Look, whenever we've had the fortunate occurrence to have an international talent to grace our shores and our shows, it's always fantastic. We're never one to take for granted the exposure and the added eyes or the added audience that person brings to PWA and to what we're doing. So the likes of, as you said, having Will Ospreay here was very much a game changer. In 2017, he came down here and had a banger match with Robbie. That was an absolute game changer. Having even the likes of House of Hardcore with Tommy Dreamer, they came down here and they did a Sydney leg of the tour, and our wrestlers smashed it out of the park. And even that managed to, open us up to a different segment of the audience or people who may not have heard of PWA.
Yeah.
So the extra fans that they bring is always very much appreciated. They bring a level of professionalism. They bring basically an example or a standard to be at as well. These people are at the top of their field for a reason. So when they come down here and show a high degree of professionalism and a great attitude, it gives all of us a bit of an idea on what it takes to be at that level. And then, something like having the absolute GOAT of Jushin Liger come down here is just, I can't really express how wild that was for me and for all the wrestlers and all the crew. Just having Jushin Liger, an absolute bona fide legend of professional wrestling, something like that again will automatically opened us up to a lot of other people. In the sense that if Jushin Liger is having one of his last matches ever at PWA, then PWA must be something special. He doesn't just throw away, one of his last matches ever. So that meant something.
Yeah.
So it's just been a whirlwind, and I just want to say, always very fortunate. Everyone that we've brought in, absolutely phenomenal, lovely people, great people, and couldn't speak highly of everyone that's been at PWA with us.
Yeah, and I have to ask, you did face Jimmy Havoc in a no DQ match. I know that that's more his territory. It was a match you actually went over in, but tell us about that experience, because I can only assume that when he comes out with the staple gun and the chairs and the tables, it could be a little bit scary, a little bit frightening maybe, but how did you handle the occasion, and what are your kind of recollections of being in the ring with Jimmy Havoc?
Look, for such a violent dude, cool cat.
Oh, I'm sure.
Chill, very softly spoken, doesn't think too much of himself, and doesn't demand too much attention when he's not in the ring. But the moment that he puts on that Hannibal Lecter mask and steps out on stage, he has a presence, and that presence is a little bit intimidating, but from that bell rang again, I think we were just very much focused on enjoying ourselves and having a fun match. Something that stands out for me in that match is I put together the worst table in professional wrestling history. The flimsiest table is. Looking back at it now, and I just cringe every time. But that match and that show was so important to us. That was when we had Progress down.
Yes.
And we ran a joint show. This was when Progress were doing a few legs in Australia. Jordan Lees also said I had a baller of a hardcore match with Mick Moretti. I encourage you not to seek that one out. But that joint venture with Progress was so important for us as well. Again, teaming with the #1 independent professional wrestling team in the world. Yeah. Only just speaks to their acknowledgement of what we're doing at PWA. But we ran that show in arguably the biggest casino in Australia. And we ran that show in a venue that's had the likes of Elton John, the Stones, and all these A-list, bona fide, actual celebrities.
That's pretty cool.
So we were backstage and like, oh, this is the locker room that, Queen set up in, or this is the locker room that Elton John was in. Pretty cool. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience the whole night. Absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely. We're gonna finish on a couple of listener questions and comments. First of all, we've got Rebecca Dearson. Rebecca says Ricky South is one cool guy. He knows how to wrestle. So there we go. And finishing with a question from Jordan Lees again. He also remembers. Oh no, sorry, that wasn't the right one. He remembers the baller of the match against you had in Newcastle against Mick Moretti. But this was the one I was meant to bring up. Ricky South is one of my favourite guys to wrestle, says Jordan. I'm intrigued to know who Ricky thought was his favourite guy to wrestle. So, have you had a favourite opponent? And was it Jordan Lees?
Look, Jordan Lees was always fun to wrestle. And he was again. Every time I wrestled Jordan, it was always a different match, which was always fun.
Yeah,
he was a part of one of the most infamous tag teams in recent Aussie memory. But have I had a favorite guy to wrestle? Look, John, mate, it's going to be a cop out. No.
Oh, okay.
I mean that in the sense that I have a lot of people like wrestling, all for a whole different set of reasons. As I said, I love wrestling Big Fudge because he's so funny that the matches we have are always just an absolute laugh. I like wrestling Jack Bonza because he is a very legitimate grappler and wrestler, and the match that I have with Jack Bonza is going to be a lot different to the match I have with, say, Paris De Silva, a small junior heavyweight high flyer. The few matches I've had with Robbie Eagles, even something similar. There's this person, junior heavyweight, but man, does he have the hardest strikes, or the worst chest kicks known to man. Like, that's just a common joke amongst the PWA. Robbie's chest kicks are like death. And apologies, I know I may also be stealing your thunder here, but I see a comment here that says Lou the Mauler.
Yes.
He's a several decade long veteran of the scene who I have not had the chance of wrestling. I haven't also had the chance of wrestling JT Robinson as well. Bucket list, and I'll put this out in the universe as well, because I'm a believer of manifesting your own fate. There was a wrestler many years ago in Australia called Incognito. Fantastic wrestler. Again, a forefather of Australian wrestling. If I ever get a chance to wrestle anyone, I would love to wrestle Incognito.
That's pretty
Putting
awesome.
that out there.
That's
Putting that out
awesome.
there. Manifest the destiny.
Well, now that you've put it out to the universe, it's got to happen, surely. It's got to happen. But who knows? Stranger things have happened. But Ricky South, it's been amazing speaking to you for the last, 55 minutes. It's been an absolute blast. We've had a lot of interaction during this live broadcast. But before we let you go, is an opportunity for you to throw out your social plugs. So I know you're on Twitter and Instagram, but give us your plugs. In fact, I've actually got a little thing there in case you need reminded. But throw out your social medias, my friend.
Look, I appreciate it. So on Twitter and Instagram, you'll find me at TS Ricky South. Shouldn't be too hard to find. But before this does go, Jonas, mate, I just want to pass on my thank you for having me here. It's amazing how quickly 55 minutes goes when you're talking wrestling.
It seemed like 10 minutes, yeah.
Absolutely seamless. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the interest into PWA and the Australian scene, and hopefully that only grows.
Absolutely. No, I'm intrigued now. I'm hooked. So I've got to speak to more PWA talent. So tell him that I'm going to be getting in touch. But any merchandise you want to plug as well? I know I believe you got a pro wrestling tee store, or you've got some merch.
Well, not a pro wrestling tee store, but we have in Australia we have basically our equivalent. That's wrestler merch. So wrestlermerch.com.au. A local Aussie business printing all the merchandise for the wrestlers and for any outside ventures. Fantastic local business, and especially now in the lockdown, supporting local businesses is always an important one.
That's awesome. But tough stuff, Ricky South. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you, Jonas, mate. Thank you, everyone. Absolutely loving it. Thank you.
Take care.